disappeared for 5 months, but now she's back and pregnant. Elisa's heart raced as she paced her dimly lit kitchen, the walls steeped in memories of laughter and warmth. 5 long months had passed since Sarah vanished into thin air, leaving behind an unsettling void that swallowed her family whole. That haunting silence was suddenly shattered by the shrill ring of the phone. Her grandmother's voice on the other end trembled with a mix of urgency and fear. "Elisa? Sweetie, Sarah is back, but it's complicated." Elisa's chest tightened. Complicated? What could possibly be more complicated than mere disappearance? "She's pregnant," her grandmother continued, each word laced with an unspoken dread. "And she's with him." Elisa felt the room spin as the name of the man loathed by their family surged through her thoughts like a dark tide. How could Sarah return, cloaked in such mystery and scandal? Panic squeezed at her throat. Had her sister truly chosen this life? Her mind raced back to their last conversation, a playful argument over the trivialities of life. A storm of worry and disbelief enveloped her. As she set down the phone, Elisa's world felt like a fragile glass on the brink of shattering. The doorbell rang, a sudden, jarring sound echoing in the stillness. She opened it to see Ben, one of Sarah's friends, standing there, a smirk lurking at the corners of his lips. He wore a leather jacket that screamed trouble, a fact that hadn't disappeared with Sarah. "Heard the news?" he asked, his voice dripping with curiosity. "What do you know about Sarah?" Elisa snapped, suspicion bubbling under her skin. "Enough," he replied, his eyes glimmering. There was something in the way he leaned against the doorframe, casual, yet predatory. "I think you'll want to see her. Convincing, really." Elisa's stomach churned. Was he here to manipulate her? If anyone had motives, it was him. The tension was palpable, heavy as the storm clouds gathering outside. She remembered stories her grandmother told, a family history marred by lies and deception. "What do you want?" she demanded, and Ben shrugged, the smile fading. "To help or mess things up? It's all the same." His laughter rang hollow, a sound that sent shivers down her spine. And with that, the door slammed shut, leaving Elisa feeling small, trapped in this chaotic whirlwind of betrayal. Her mind raced, connecting threads woven through family secrets. What had Sarah gotten into? Why this man? As night fell, shadows danced menacingly around her, and memories of a once close bond with her sister became like sand slipping through her fingers. Torn between the desire to protect their fractured family and the chilling truth lurking below the surface, Elisa sat adrift. Is loyalty worth the unearthing of secrets that might shatter everything? The storm inside her raged on, just like the tempest brewing outside, leaving only one question echoing in her mind as darkness enveloped her. What if the truth is the most dangerous? Enemy of all? Hey, before you continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content. And while you're there, leave that powerful like. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love meeting all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes a difference. Let's interact. Elisa sat in the thick darkness, the weight of her sister's return pressing down on her like a heavy fog. Uncertainty twisted in her belly, a knot of anxiety tightening with each fleeting thought. What did Sarah want? What had happened to her? The storm outside rumbled, sinking with the turmoil inside her. Suddenly, a loud knock shattered the silence, pulling Elisa from her spiraling thoughts. Her heart raced again as she approached the door. Who could it be now? As she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. There stood Sarah, looking more fragile than ever, her usually bright eyes clouded with something unrecognizable. But it wasn't just Sarah's pale face that shocked Elisa. The man standing behind her made her skin crawl. Ben with that same smirk twisted on his lips. "What are you doing here?" Elisa demanded, anger bubbling under the surface. "Let me explain," Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. Elisa stepped back, torn between relief and the stark realization that everything had changed. The once familiar warmth had turned to ice. "What do you mean? You just disappeared." "I had to." Sarah paused, her words hanging in the air like a thread about to snap. "Things got complicated." "Complicated?" Elisa echoed, disbelief dripping from her words. "You mean you left us, left me, without a word? And now you're pregnant?" Ben shuffled uncomfortably, stepping forward. "Listen, Elisa, this isn't what you think. It's—" Before he could finish, another knock echoed through the house, this time more insistent. Breath caught in her throat again. Elisa opened the door more cautiously, a sense of dread creeping over her. A police officer stood there, a serious look etched onto his face. "Is this the residence of Elisa Turner?" "What happened?" she stammered, the world tilting again. "We need to speak to you about your sister. There have been developments." His eyes flickered to Sarah, somber and unsettling. Suddenly, the air felt electric like the storm outside. "What do you mean? What developments?" "Can we come in?" he asked, his voice steady but firm. Elisa nodded, fear choking her words as she stepped aside. Sarah's expression shifted into a mask of pure terror as the officer entered. "Elisa," Sarah pleaded, trembling, "you need to listen." But the officer continued. "We've been searching for Sarah for months. There's something you need to know." The room grew cold, silence wrapping around them like a shroud. Elisa's heart raced as she looked between her sister and the cop, each heartbeat loud in her ears, threatening to drown out reason. "Your sister was involved in something dangerous, and we believe her life may still be at risk." "What?" Elisa gasped, confusion swirling. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" "Your sister was part of an investigation," he replied, locking his eyes on Sarah. "We think someone wants her dead. But the shocking part? We believe she has vital information about what they were doing. Something that involves him." Elisa felt the room close in on her, her mind spinning. Him? Ben? But as she turned her gaze to where Ben stood, her heart stopped. He was gone. Just like that, vanished into thin air. "Where's Ben?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Who?" the officer replied, eyes wide with confusion. "Elisa, you don't understand," Sarah cried, desperation painting her face. "He's been protecting me all along. He's not who you think." Elisa felt the ground shift beneath her, everything she thought she knew crumbling away. Was Ben really her sister's ally? Or had he just used Sarah to manipulate everyone? "What is happening?" she whispered, her world spinning once more. As she faced her sister, she knew one thing for certain. The truth was deeper and far darker than she had imagined. And now it felt like a fragile thread was unraveling in her grasp. Elisa stood there, completely frozen. Her gaze drifted back and forth between her sister and the police officer, the room thick with tension. Sarah's trembling hands spoke volumes. It was like a scream stuck in her throat. "You've got to believe me, Elisa. I didn't want this to happen." "Then tell me the truth," Elisa yelled, desperation rising like bile. "Don't hide behind that anymore." But before Sarah could speak, a loud crashing sound echoed from the back of the house. It was followed by shouting, chaotic voices crashing together like waves in a storm. The officer's eyes widened, his expression suddenly serious. "Stay here. Lock the door." He moved toward the sound, his badge shimmering under the dim light. "Wait, what's happening?" Panic shot through Elisa. She grabbed Sarah's arm. "What is going on?" "Hide," Sarah whispered, but there was something frantic in her eyes. Before Elisa could respond, the officer dashed out of the room, following the noise down the dark hallway. Elisa's thoughts tangled in a frenzy. What was happening? Did it have something to do with Ben? He had vanished so quickly, leaving her uncertain and afraid. She could hear a scuffle now, loud and brutal, furniture being toppled, and the unmistakable sound of a body hitting the floor. "Why are they after you?" Elisa's voice trembled, a knot tightening in her chest. "Are you in trouble with the law? Or is it about him?" The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Sarah's face paled even further, and Elisa could see the fear etched around her sister's eyes. "I told you, it's complicated, Ben." They both jumped as heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway, and a collective gasp ripped through the air as the officer re-entered the room, dragging a man in handcuffs behind him. It was Ben. The smirk was gone, replaced with sheer panic. "Step back," the officer barked. "He might be armed." Elisa's heart raced. She clutched Sarah's arm tighter. "What is happening?" "Listen, Ben began, but the officer shoved him forward, forcing him to his knees. "Your sister is a key witness in a large drug operation," the officer stated flatly, looking directly at Elisa. "Do you have any idea how deep this goes?" Elisa could barely murmur the word. What are they talking about? The world spun wildly, glimmers of truth darting around her like fireflies. "About the vanishing," Ben said suddenly, his voice low and urgent. "It's not what you think. I've been protecting her because she—" Before he could finish, something shifted in Sarah's expression. It was fear mixed with something else, something darker. "Shut up, Ben. You don't understand." Her voice echoed as shock coursed through Elisa. "What don't I understand? Tell me." "Sarah," the officer interrupted, grip tightening around Ben's arm. "We need the truth now." A deep silence hung over them, thick enough to suffocate. Elisa felt the ground shake beneath her. "What's the truth?" Sarah's eyes darted around, then lowered in resignation. "I didn't disappear to save myself. I was helping them, the ones they're after. They have too much on me." The air turned icy, disbelief crashing over Elisa like waves on the shore. "You? The truth is—" Sarah hesitated, eyes welling with tears. "I'm not just pregnant. I'm pregnant with his child." Ben looked up sharply, a world of emotions crossing his face. "No, Sarah, don't. It's bigger than that." The officer's expression hardened. "Bigger? How?" And just like that, the weight of the revelation hung in the air, ready to explode. There was a crash from another room, echoing like thunder. Frantic footsteps raced toward them, and Elisa felt her heart skip. She was not ready for what came next. "Get down!" the officer shouted, stepping in front of them. There was a flash of movement, a blur of darkness, and then a single gunshot rang out, slicing through the tension. Elisa's scream swallowed the air as chaos erupted around her, leaving her standing on the brink of horror, with only one question echoing in her mind. Would they all survive the truth? Elisa's scream hung in the air, raw and piercing. Everything around her blurred in a haze of confusion and fear. The gunshot echoed, its merciless sound pulsing in her ears like a drum. The officer threw himself protectively against the wall, but Elisa's mind spiraled. What was happening? "Get down!" he shouted, again his voice commanding, but she couldn't move. She was frozen. All she could see was Ben on the floor, panic etched on his face, and Sarah trembling beside her, caught in a whirlwind of chaos. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Ben cried out, desperation drenching his voice. "I swear, I was trying to protect her." Suddenly, there was another sharp sound, a loud crash from a side window. Glass shattered, fragments glimmering in the dark like diamonds scattering across the floor. A masked figure lunged inside, gun drawn, eyes wild with intention. Elisa's heart pounded in her chest. Who was this? An intruder, one of the people Sarah had been running from. "Ben!" she yelled, her voice rising in panic. "Stay away from her!" the officer roared, stepping between Sarah and the intruder. But in a flash, The newcomer turned his weapon toward the officer, and time slowed. Elisa felt the heat of fear radiate from her body. "Get back," she screamed, instinctively pushing Sarah behind her. "Why are you doing this?" Ben shouted, his hands held high, palms out, trying to convey a sense of peace amidst the turmoil. "Because she knows too much," the intruder spat, voice muffled by the mask. "And we can't let her or the others speak." "Others?" The word sliced through the tension like a knife. What did he mean by the others? Then, in a moment of sheer chaos, the masked figure lunged forward, shoving the officer aside and grabbing for Sarah. A rush of adrenaline surged through Elisa. She sprang into action, pushing Sarah away from the grasping hands, all while her mind raced. There was a loud thud, and Elisa turned to see the officer tackle the intruder. It was a blur of bodies, shouts, and desperation. The room flooded with tension, every second feeling like an eternity. "Sarah, we need to go," Elisa yelled. But in the midst of the chaos, Sarah's eyes were wide, filled with something else. Something Elisa hadn't expected. "Stay back, I have to tell you something," Sarah shouted. But her words got lost in the fray. The officer shouted commands, and for a wild moment, everything seemed to pause. Then there was a sudden release, an exhale of anguish as the officer wrestled the intruder to the ground, both grappling for control. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed, and the intruder was disarmed. The tension of the fight seemed to snap back like a tightened bowstring. As the officer handcuffed the intruder, Elisa's instincts urged her to pivot around to her sister. "What is going on, Sarah? You have to explain." For what felt like hours, Sarah's silence felt heavier than the walls enclosing them. Then finally, she took a breath, looking into Elisa's eyes with a mix of fear and determination. "I've been involved with Ben all this time." "He was undercover, Elisa. He was sent to get me away from them." "What?" Elisa gasped, disbelief flooding her senses. "Ben, undercover? But before she could finish, Ben spoke up, his voice steady and solemn. "And you're in danger too, Elisa. They'll come for you next. They know you're connected to Sarah." The words hung in the air, heavy and weighted. "What do you mean by that?" In that instant, a reality crashed down around her, unraveling everything she thought she knew. A wrenching beat pulsed in her chest. The truth. Was it really worth the cost? As chaos surrounded them, Elisa realized she was standing at the precipice of an unimaginable choice. Would she embrace a truth that shattered her world? Would she trust her sister once again? Elisa's heart raced. The questions twisted in her mind. Who was really on her side? What darkness loomed just out of sight? And could she handle the truth if it meant losing everything she thought was real? Elisa stood there, completely frozen. Her gaze drifted back and forth between her sister and the police officer, the room thick with tension. Sarah's trembling hands spoke volumes. It was like a scream stuck in her throat. "You've got to believe me, Elisa. I didn't want this to happen." "Then tell me the truth," Elisa yelled, desperation rising like bile. "Don't hide behind that anymore." But before Sarah could speak, a loud, crashing sound echoed from the back of the house. It was followed by shouting, chaotic voices crashing together like waves in a storm. The officer's eyes widened, his expression suddenly serious. "Stay here. Lock the door." He moved toward the sound, his badge shimmering under the dim light. "Wait, what's happening?" Panic shot through Elisa. She grabbed Sarah's arm. "What is going on?" "Hide," Sarah whispered, but there was something frantic in her eyes. Before Elisa could respond, the officer dashed out of the room, following the noise down the dark hallway. Elisa's thoughts tangled in a frenzy. What was happening? Did it have something to do with Ben? He had vanished so quickly, leaving her uncertain and afraid. She could hear a scuffle now, loud and brutal, furniture being toppled, and the unmistakable sound of a body hitting the floor. "Why are they after you?" Elisa's voice trembled, a knot tightening in her chest. "Are you in trouble with the law, or is it about Him. The word tasted bitter on her tongue. Sarah's face paled even further, and Elisa could see the fear etched around her sister's eyes. I told you, it's complicated. Ben. They both jumped as heavy footsteps thundered down the hallway, and a collective gasp ripped through the air as the officer re-entered the room, dragging a man in handcuffs behind him. It was Ben. The smirk was gone, replaced with sheer panic. "Step back," the officer barked. "He might be armed." Elisa's heart raced. She clutched Sarah's arm tighter. "What is happening?" "Listen, Ben began, but the officer shoved him forward, forcing him to his knees. "Your sister is a key witness in a large drug operation," the officer stated flatly, looking directly at Elisa. "Do you have any idea how deep this goes?" "Sarah?" Elisa could barely murmur the word. "What are they talking about?" The world spun wildly, glimmers of truth darting around her like fireflies. "About the vanishing," Ben said suddenly, his voice low and urgent. "It's not what you think. I've been protecting her, because she—" But before he could finish, something shifted in Sarah's expression. It was fear mixed with something else, something darker. "Shut up, Ben. You don't understand." Her voice echoed as shock coursed through Elisa. "What don't I understand? Tell me." "Sarah," the officer interrupted, grip tightening around Ben's arm. "We need the truth now." A deep silence hung over them, thick enough to suffocate. Eliza felt the ground shake beneath her. "What's the truth?" Sarah's eyes darted around, then lowered in resignation. "I didn't disappear to save myself. I was helping them, the ones they're after. They have too much on me." The air turned icy, disbelief crashing over Eliza like waves on the shore. "You?" The weight of the revelation hung in the air, ready to explode. There was a crash from another room, echoing like thunder. Frantic footsteps raced toward them, and Eliza felt her heart skip. She was not ready for what came next. "Get down," the officer shouted, stepping in front of them. Then there was a flash of movement, a blur of darkness, and a single gunshot rang out, slicing through the tension. Elisa's scream swallowed the air as chaos erupted around her, leaving her standing on the brink of horror, with only one question echoing in her mind. Would they all survive the truth? Suddenly, the world morphed into chaos. A blinding light flashed from the hallway. An explosion erupted, sending debris flying through the air. The officer was thrown backward, hitting the wall with a sickening thud. Time slowed as Elisa grasped what had just happened. "Sarah!" she screamed, as smoke filled the room. Through the haze she could barely see Sarah's silhouette, frozen in fear, rooted to the spot. "Run!" Sarah finally yelled, her voice straining over the roar of the chaos. But Elisa's feet felt like lead. She could hardly breathe. Instead, she turned toward Ben, who was struggling against the officer on the ground. The man was no longer just a passive figure. He was a threat. "Let him go," Elisa shouted, but in the whirlwind of confusion, she didn't know who to trust. "Forget him," Sarah shouted again, but Elisa's mind raced. Then a shocking realization struck her. Amidst the confusion and tremors of the chaos, there was something else flickering in her mind, something that felt almost buried. A memory, a flash of her family, their faces clouded, beckoning her back. And then suddenly she understood. This was all a setup, Elisa gasped, the weight of the truth crashing over her like a tidal wave. It wasn't just Ben caught in a web of deceit. You knew this would happen. Before Sarah could respond, the flames swallowed the corridor, pushing them deeper into danger. The officer groaned, struggling to rise. "Elisa, trust me, escape." But just then, as if reality were bending into madness, a figure appeared at the doorway. It was another officer, but this one, Elisa recognized the face. It was someone she thought she would never see again. Someone who'd been lost to the shadows of her past. "Get out of here! It's not safe," the figure yelled, eyes blazing in the chaotic glow. Elisa's heart pounded violently in her chest. 1,000 questions raced through her mind. Who was this? Why were they here? How could this person still be alive? Who are you? Sarah cried, confusion splattering her words. But the answer hung in the air like smoke, clouding the truth further and leaving Elisa with an urgent sense of dread. Shouted warnings echoed as chaos enveloped them, sealing their fate with a devastating question that lingered in the tangled web of fear. Could they truly trust anyone at all? Elisa's heart raced as she struggled to comprehend the wild chaos around her. Each second felt drawn out, as if time itself was slowing to a crawl. The shimmering light of the fire cast frantic shadows on the walls, and the acrid smell of smoke filled her nostrils. She could barely breathe, fear gripping her chest like a vice. "Get out of here," the figure shouted again, urgency slicing through the confusion. It was only now, in the flickering light, that she recognized him, her long-lost brother, Matt. Her mind spun. He had vanished years ago, swallowed by a life of uncertainties, a ghost of her childhood. "I thought you were dead," she gasped, astonished. Matt pushed forward, urgency reflected in his deep-set eyes. "There's no time. We need to go." "Why? What's going on?" Her voice trembled as she clutched Sarah's arm, still trying to process the whirlwind of events unfolding. "You can't just show up." But Matt cut her off, his voice grave. "There's a reason they're after Sarah. It's not just the drug ring. It's about Dad." A sharp silence flooded the room, jarring Elisa from the chaos surrounding them. "Dad? What do you mean?" Elisa whispered, feeling the floor beneath her shift. "I found out the truth about our family, about his connections," Matt said hurriedly, glancing over his shoulder as the sounds of chaos grew louder. "He's involved. Dangerous people. All of this." He gestured broadly, almost hyperventilating. "It's linked back to him." Elisa's stomach dropped. Memories of their father flooded her mind. The idyllic family dinners, the laughter, everything now tarnished by this revelation. "No, that can't be true." "But it is," Matt insisted, grabbing her shoulders, trying to ground her. "I was with them, the ones who are after Sarah. They used me to get to him." "We have to leave now, Elisa." Panic surged through her veins. "But what about Sarah? She's in danger. We can't just leave her." Matt cast a worried glance at Sarah, who stood frozen, her fear palpable. "If this goes down, it's not just the two of you who will be at risk. You have to trust me." Just then, the masked intruders stirred, eyes gleaming with malice as they broke free from the officer. In an instant, danger reignited. "Go, go, go!" the officer yelled, lunging forward, blocking the intruder's path. But the situation spiraled out of control. A gunshot rang out, piercing the air like a knife. Time stretched again as both Elisa and Sarah screamed. Everything shattered. Just then, the officers struggled to maintain control, but it was too late. Gunfire erupted again. The officer stumbled, falling to the floor. "No!" Elisa screamed, the salt of the chaos anchoring into her heart with an absolute fear. In that harrowing moment, a searing realization crashed over her, shattering her world further. As they stumbled toward the door, she turned back, catching a glimpse of Ben. He was kneeling by the fallen officer. And then, "Elisa, go!" Matt shouted as her heart lurched. But Elisa stopped, frozen as Ben turned to face her, his expression not one of fear, but something else entirely. Betrayal. "You didn't deserve to know," he spat, revealing a glimmer of darkness in his eyes. "What do you mean?" she asked, horrified. Everything she believed shattered into pieces around her, the betrayal slicing like glass. Ben grinned, a chilling sight amid the chaos. "You think you're the hero in this story? You have no idea how deep the rabbit hole goes." The very ground beneath her feet seemed to darken, swallowed by the weight of his words. Confusion mingled with dread, spreading through her like wildfire. "Let's go," Matt urged, pulling Sarah toward the door. But Elisa stood paralyzed, and all she could think was, What truth had she stumbled into? As she turned to flee, she realized something profound. Everything she thought was safe, everyone she believed in, was just an illusion, shrouded in a web of intricate lies. And the biggest surprise? The real enemy was closer than she could ever imagine. What had she truly uncovered? Elisa stood paralyzed, the chaos swirling around her like a violent storm. Ben's words cut through the air, sharp as glass. You didn't deserve to know. Her heart raced, dread pooling in her gut. What did that mean? The world felt like it was unspooling, and she needed to cling to something real. Get out! Matt was pulling at her, tugging Sarah along, but Elisa stayed put, her head spinning. What do you mean? She demanded, her voice shaking. What don't I understand? Just know you're part of something much bigger, Ben spat, eyes flickering with that familiar mix of arrogance and fear. You're in over your head. Elisa, you may never understand. Then the wall seemed to quake as another explosion echoed from the hallway, shaking her bones. The flames surged higher, enveloping the doorframe. Panic twisted her throat like a vice. What's happening? She cried, desperation clawing at her. But before anyone could respond, there was another jarring sound, a heavy thud that reverberated through the room. A figure stumbled into view through the smoke behind Matt. It was another officer, but he didn't look like the ones they had seen before. Get down, he shouted, but Elisa barely had time to react. The officer brandished his firearm, aiming directly at Matt and Sarah. Wait, no, he's with me, Elisa screamed, stepping between them, her heart pounding wildly. He's my brother. Your brother is under investigation, the officer shouted back, voice cold as ice, eyes narrowing. Don't interfere. The room felt like it was closing in, the heat blistering her skin. You don't understand, Elisa yelled, fear mixing with confusion. We need to escape. But just then another figure came rushing in from the back. This one wore a suit. A suited man, sharp and polished, revealed himself, smirk stretching across his face. Well, well, if it isn't the whole Turner family reunion, he sneered, eyes unabashedly dancing over them. Who are you? Elisa demanded, her voice shaking. But deep down, she recognized him. Mitch, their father's partner, a man draped in mystery, known for making shady deals. Funny seeing you all here, especially after your father's departure, he replied, voice oozing with mockery. I heard you little girls were playing with fire. What do you want? Matt shot, stepping protectively in front of Elisa and Sarah. Mitch chuckled. It's not what I want. It's about what your father wanted, a legacy. What are you talking about? Elisa's voice trembled, as she felt the world shift again. Another jolt of revelation hitting her. Mitch's grin widened. Let's just say your father wasn't just a businessman. He was the kingpin of this whole operation. And now, you're all little pawns in a game much bigger than you could imagine. As if on cue, an ominous sound made them look outside. The faint rumble of more engines was coming. They're coming for you, Mitch said, his voice dangerously calm. Then suddenly, an explosion of light engulfed the room. Elisa felt a sharp pain in her side, and she stumbled back, gasping as stars exploded in front of her. Eyes. Matt shouted her name, but the sound faded as darkness crept in. When Elisa blinked back into focus, everything was different. The flames flickered, illuminating an eerie scene. Sarah stood over her with tears in her eyes, but it was the look of determination that pierced Elisa deeper than anything else. Get up, Elisa. We've got to go. Matt's voice echoed somewhere in the distance. But as Elisa tried to stand, something in her chest tightened. There, just behind Sarah, stood Ben, his face twisted in an expression of anguish. Elisa, I never wanted any of this to happen. But there's a reason I couldn't tell you everything. Suddenly the ground beneath them shook violently, the building groaning like a beast awakening. Forget everything, We have to leave, Matt urged again, panic lacing his voice. But in that moment, Elisa felt a surge of clarity so deep it cut through the fog of fear. The real truth about her family, about Ben, was teetering just out of reach. "No," Elisa shouted, her voice breaking as the walls closed in. "What else are you hiding?" But it was too late. There was another rumble, louder this time, and then the ceiling began to collapse. In that instant, as dust and debris cascaded around them, Elisa realized one undeniable truth. Everything they knew could unravel in an instant. And with that thought echoing, the darkness swallowed her whole, leaving behind only one pressing question. What were they truly fighting for? Elisa's world spun into chaos as the ceiling above her groaned, debris falling like rain. She could barely catch her breath, the smoke tightening around her throat. Matt's urgent grip pulled her toward the door, but she hesitated, heart racing. "Forget Ben," Matt yelled. "He's not worth it." "No," Elisa shouted back, panic washing over her. Ben was still too close, too familiar, even wrapped in danger. What if he knows something? What if we need him? Before anyone could respond, another explosion ripped through the hallway, shaking the foundation beneath them. The officer was going down, the intruder scrambling to regain footing. "Get out now! Go!" And just then, the world erupted into fire and screams. Flames licked towards them, howling like a ravenous beast, devouring hope, swallowing their reality. Then the focus shifted. A loud crash resounded through the smoke-filled air. The walls shuddered as a figure burst through the charred doorway. It was a woman, short, fierce, with eyes like daggers. Elisa blinked, struggling to grasp the scene. "Ava?" she gasped, her heart heavy as recognition crashed over her. It was their mother, her presence pulling the pieces of the past together. "Get down!" Ava shouted, charging into the chaos, her arms waving aggressively. "What are you doing here? All of you! I told you to stay away!" "Mom?" Elisa stammered, confusion knotting in her gut. "You're alive? Why are you here?" "Because they're coming for you," Ava yelled, breathless. "They think I'm dead, too. You need to run." But just as hope flickered, the air crackled ominously. From behind Ava, more shadows slithered through the smoke. Another group of armed men, cold and ruthless, eyes glinting with malice. "Take her," one of them shouted, pointing straight at Ava. Matt's fear ignited. "Run," he screamed, but no one moved. Ava's gaze shifted wildly, desperately seeking an escape. But just as she turned back to them, her expression morphed into something else, something dark. "Mom," Elisa shouted, confusion and urgency boiling inside her. And that's when it happened. Ava pulled something from her coat, a sleek, silvery device that glinted in the flame's light. "It's done. I'm ending this now." "What?" Matt gasped, horror dawning. "Are you serious?" In an instant, the world held its breath. Ava pressed the button, and a shockwave erupted through the air. Elisa felt it prickle her skin, all sound lost in that terrifying silence as her mind raced. Then came the blast. It was like a thunderclap mixed with a roar, a wave of energy cascading over them. Elisa was thrown back against the wall, gasping. As her vision cleared, she saw. Bodies dropped. Men crumpled like puppets, falling to the ground around Ava, as if hit by an unseen force. The flames dimmed, almost retreating in response, leaving them in an eerie fog. "What just happened?" Sarah whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. Ava stepped forward, shaking, but her grip on the device was firm. "They were working for him," she gasped, pointing toward Ben, who had managed to get back to his feet. Elisa spun to Ben, breath hitching. "What do you mean?" And then it struck her. The truth hit like a freight train. Everything she knew was built on lies. The secrets ran deeper than she could ever fathom. Ben had been planted among them, a pawn in an even bigger game. "It was you, wasn't it?" she shouted, voice fierce, disbelief bubbling. He opened his mouth, but no words came. He stood there, pale, a ghost of the confident man she thought she knew. "Your father's legacy is ending here, but you three," Ava's voice reverberated with finality, "are in the crossfire." Elisa's mind raced. "What does that mean?" Ava stepped closer, determination blazing in her eyes. "It means you're part of something much larger than you ever realized, and now our family is at the center of it all." As silence descended again, Elisa's heart pounded like a war drum. What do we do now? The flames flickered behind them, and the uncertainty gathered like a storm on the horizon. If their family was part of a web of deception, how would they ever find their way out? Would they be forced to embrace a legacy of darkness? The very ground felt like it was shifting beneath them, and as they stood on the precipice of a revelation, one question loomed above all else. Who among them could still be trusted? Elisa's heart raced as she absorbed the chaos around her, the flames flickering behind Ava, the tension thick as smoke. "Mom, what do you mean?" she stammered, desperately trying to piece everything together. Ben stood there, a strange mix of fear and defiance etched on his face. Ava took a step forward, voice steady yet urgent. "We don't have much time. I've been trying to protect you all from the truth, but it's too dangerous. You have no idea what you're really involved in." The whole room felt heavy, charged with unspoken secrets. "Involved in what? What have you been hiding?" Elisa pushed, her voice echoing in the suffocating silence. She felt a tremor in her hands, fear mingling with confusion. Then, out of nowhere, a loud crash disrupted their intense moment. The front door burst open, flying off its hinges like cardboard. Two men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn. They bellowed commands, slicing through the air with precision. "Get on the ground, now!" Elisa's breath caught in her throat. She looked at Matt, who was still struggling to piece things together. Their mother hadn't told them everything, and now danger was right in front of them. "Run!" Matt shouted, but before they could react, Ava stepped forward with unexpected bravado. "No, you don't understand," she yelled, facing the armed men. "I have the information you need." One officer narrowed his eyes, skepticism painted on his face. "We're not playing games." "I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request." Shifted in the room. The tension morphed, intensifying with Ava's revelation. But before anyone could react, a loud roar erupted from the back of the house. The noise shook the walls, and a car sped up the driveway, metal crashing, tires screeching. Ben's face blanched, horror etched across it. "They found us. They're here." Elisa's heart pounded. They were running out of time. And then she noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. A shadowy figure in the window. A familiar silhouette. Their father. "You shouldn't have come back, Ava," he said, voice low and menacing, surfacing from the smoke like a specter. "You had your chance." Her whole world tilted again. "Dad?" Elisa gasped, disbelief folding over her like a shroud. He stepped forward, emerging from the shadows, and just behind him, another figure followed, an even bigger surprise. "I'm sorry, kids," he said, eyes low, almost defeated. "But it's time you learned the truth." And that's when Matt froze. "No, it can't be." The figure revealed itself fully, and in that moment, the air crackled with uncertainty. "Elisa," she heard Sarah whisper, panic dancing across her face. "It's Mom. She's not who we thought she was." Elisa's heart raced, the intensity of the moment almost paralyzing. "What do you mean?" she asked, grasping desperately for clarity in the swirling chaos. And just like that, all the pieces began to click into place. There was a connection, a thread, pulling everything back to the beginning. "It's all a lie," Ben shouted, eyes wide, panic fueling each word. Ava was not just their mother. She was part of this whole elaborate deception, and now everything was crashing down around them. With one final, heart-stopping realization, the darkness shifted, revealing truths no one was prepared to face. "What did you do, Mom?" Elisa said, her voice trembling, barely a whisper, the weight of betrayal suffocating. But before Ava could respond, another explosion cut through the air. Another burst of chaos. As the smoke cleared, one shocking sentence rang through Elisa's mind. Would anyone still make it out alive before everything they thought they knew imploded into dust? The air crackled with tension as Ava stood, device in hand, confidence painting her features. "It's over," she declared, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We can end this now, together." Elisa's heart pounded. The truth hit harder than the flames around them. "Mom, why didn't you tell us?" she cried, her voice shaking. "Because I wanted to protect you. I didn't want you caught in this web," Ava shot back, her eyes pleading. But the masked figure of their father loomed closer, his intentions dark as the smoke filling the room. "You think you can defy me? You're just children playing in a game far beyond your understanding," he growled, his voice low and dangerous. "Stop, all of you," Matt shouted, rallying his sisters. "We're not pawns anymore. We'll decide our own fate." Ava turned to him, her expression softening. "You're right, we must stand together, but we have to leave now." Just as she spoke, the tactical officers moved in, weapons raised, demanding compliance. "Get down. This is an active scene." "Mom, we have to trust them," Elisa urged, glancing between her mother and the armed officers. Every second felt like a lifetime. "Trust? After everything?" Ava replied with bitterness, panic flickering in her gaze. "Please," Elisa cried, voice raw. "If we don't act now, it's all over." Without hesitation, Matt stepped forward in defiance, determination seeping into his tone. "We will not be part of your empire anymore, Dad. This ends now." With one swift motion, Ava activated the device again. Lights blazed, creating a shield of energy that repelled the officers. "You will not take my family." Elisa felt warmth radiate from her mother's resolve. The air hummed, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed as though the chaos surrounding them would calm. But just then, Ben surged forward, breaking the moment. "Elisa, you can't trust them." The scream was visceral, a raw sound that echoed against the walls. "Ben, you've lied to us," Elisa shouted, tears blurring her vision. "Why should we believe you now?" He hesitated, the weight of his actions landing heavily on his shoulders. "Because I'm not the enemy here." His voice trembled, filled with desperation. "They'll come for all of you. We can help each other." Suddenly, gunfire erupted outside the house. The sound sent shockwaves through the room. Everyone ducked instinctively. "They found us!" shouted one of the officers, fear morphing into urgency. The whole house shook. Elements of uncertainty and fear merged into one. Elisa clutched her siblings tighter, her heart racing as confusion overwhelmed her. "Go now," Ava shouted, pushing her children toward the back door. But Elisa hesitated, torn between her family and the man who had haunted her dreams. "You're coming too, Dad," she cried, but her plea fell on deaf ears. He stood there, watching them with a smile that chilled her to the bone. "You'll regret this. You don't know what they will do." "No, we can't leave you," Matt insisted, but Ava grabbed his arm, guiding him on. "Trust me, we need to survive," she urged, her voice laced with fear. "We need each other." In that chaotic moment, Elisa made a choice. "I can't do this," she yelled, eyes ablaze. She dashed toward Ben, the intensity of the moment consuming her. "If you're helping, then help us. Prove it." With the shouts of the officers echoing behind them, Ben stepped closer. "I'll do whatever it takes," he vowed, eyes earnest. As the smoke billowed around them, they rushed toward the back exit, urgency coursing through their veins. They were headed for freedom, but the weight of their family legacy pressed heavily on their shoulders. With each step, the reality of their situation became clearer. But as they pushed through the door, the sounds of chaos faded behind them. The night was dark, filled with uncertainty, but it held a promise, a chance to rewrite their story. As they fled into the unknown, one question remained. Could they truly escape the legacy that had defined them? Before we wrap up, you need to do something. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Click the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this insane ending, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to know how it all ends. Don't wait another second to share this. You must show your support. True fans know the importance of keeping the community alive.